The moment I saw her baby shower invitation with my dream name plastered across it, I knew my so-called best friend had just made the biggest mistake of her life. I still remember every excruciating detail of that moment when my world came crashing down. The notification sound from my phone, innocent enough, just another Instagram update in my daily scroll. But when I opened it, when I saw those words dancing mockingly across my screen, I felt something die inside me. Something precious and sacred that I had been nurturing for years. Something that belonged to the deepest part of my soul as a future mother. Join us in celebrating baby Serafina Rose. My hands began to tremble uncontrollably. The phone nearly slipped from my grasp as I stared at those words, reading them over and over again, hoping desperately that my eyes were deceiving me. But there it was, bold and beautiful and absolutely devastating. Serafina. My Serafina. The name that had lived in my heart since I was 17 years old. The name I had whispered to myself during countless lonely nights. The name I had practiced saying aloud when no one was listening, imagining the day I would finally call my daughter by it. Just 2 weeks earlier, I had been sitting across from her at our favorite brunch spot, the same place where we had shared countless secrets, dreams, and fears over the years. The morning sun was streaming through the windows, casting a golden glow across the table, and I felt so full of hope and excitement about my pregnancy. I was glowing with that special radiance that comes with carrying new life, and I wanted to share something incredibly precious with the person I trusted most in the world. I have something amazing to tell you, I had said, leaning forward with barely contained excitement. I have chosen the perfect name for my daughter. She had looked up from her avocado toast, her eyes sparkling with what I thought was genuine interest and affection. How wrong I was about so many things that morning. Tell me everything, she had said, clutching those ridiculous fake pearls she always wore. The ones that made her feel sophisticated, but only highlighted how desperately she wanted to be someone she was not. Serafina. I had whispered, my voice filled with all the love and hope I carried for my unborn child. It means angelic. It is rare, elegant, absolutely perfect. I have been dreaming of this name since I was a teenager. It is going to be Serafina Rose. I remember how her eyes had widened, how she had leaned back in her chair as if the name had physically struck her. Oh wow, she had breathed, her voice carrying what I mistook for admiration. That is so unique, Emma. So incredibly beautiful. I had trusted her completely. She was supposed to be my best friend, my confidant, the person who would stand by me through everything. We had known each other since college, had been through breakups and makeups, career changes and family dramas. She was supposed to be the godmother to my child, the aunt who would spoil my daughter rotten and love her unconditionally. But I was living in a fantasy, believing in a friendship that existed only in my naive imagination. For 2 weeks after that brunch, she had been strangely distant. Our usual daily texts became sporadic, our phone calls grew shorter, and when I asked her about baby names for her own pregnancy, she would just shrug and say she was still undecided, still waiting for the right inspiration to strike. What a lie! What a calculated, devastating lie. When that invitation appeared on my screen, something inside me shattered into a million pieces. The betrayal was so complete, so absolutely heartless, that I could not even process it at first. This was not just about a name. This was about trust, about sacred feminine bonds, about the deepest kind of violation between women who were supposed to support each other through the journey of motherhood. I called her immediately, my fingers shaking as I dialed her number. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst from my chest. When she answered, her voice was light and cheerful, as if she had not just committed the most heinous act of friendship betrayal imaginable. Emma, how are you feeling? How is the pregnancy going? The casual tone in her voice made me feel physically sick. How could she sound so normal, so innocent, when she had just stolen something so precious from me? I saw your invitation, I managed to say, my voice barely above a whisper. There was a long pause. Too long. In that silence, I heard everything I needed to know about who she really was. Oh, that, she said finally, and I could hear the fake surprise in her voice. Yes, we finally decided on a name. Is it not beautiful? My husband just fell in love with it when I suggested it. When she suggested it. My name. The name I had shared with her in confidence. The name that had been living in my heart for years. The name that represented all my hopes and dreams for my daughter's future. "That is my name," I said, and my voice cracked with emotion. "That is the name I told you. The name I have been planning to use." Another pause. Then incredibly she laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh Emma, you cannot own a name. Names belong to everyone. Besides, I am sure you will find something else just as beautiful." The casual cruelty in her voice was like a knife to my heart. This was not an accident. This was not a coincidence. This was deliberate, calculated theft of something she knew was precious to me. I hung up the phone without another word. For hours, I sat in my nursery, surrounded by the soft pink and gold decorations I had so carefully chosen, staring at the empty picture frame where I had planned to put my daughter's name in beautiful calligraphy. I cried until I had no tears left, mourning not just the loss of a name, but the death of a friendship I had believed was real. My husband found me there, curled up in the rocking chair I had imagined using to soothe my baby Serafina to sleep. He held me while I sobbed out the whole story, his anger growing with every word. "We should call her out publicly," he said, his voice tight with rage. "What she did is unforgivable." But I could not do that. Despite everything, despite the betrayal and the heartbreak, I could not bring myself to start a public war over a baby name. Maybe I was too soft, too forgiving, too naive even after everything that had happened. "Let it go," I whispered. "Let her have it." But even as I said those words, even as I tried to convince myself that it did not matter, something was changing inside me. The grief was transforming into something else, something harder and more determined. If she thought she could steal my dreams and leave me with nothing, she was about to learn just how wrong she was. I spent the next few weeks in a strange kind of focused intensity, researching names with the dedication of a scholar. But this time, I was not just looking for something pretty or meaningful. I was looking for something extraordinary, something that would become legendary. I wanted a name that would make people stop and take notice. A name that would grow beyond just being my daughter's identity and become something larger, something influential. That was when I found Lyra. The moment I read about it, I knew I had discovered something magical. Lyra, the constellation, the celestial harp that played music for the gods. It represented melody, light, strength, and infinite possibility. The name rolled off my tongue like poetry, like a song that had been waiting my entire life to be sung. Lyra Elise. Perfect. Powerful. Unforgettable. My daughter was born on a crisp October morning. And the moment I held her in my arms, I knew that everything had happened exactly as it was supposed to. She was not meant to be Serafina. She was Lyra, completely and absolutely, and the name fit her like it had been written in the stars long before she was conceived. While I was falling in love with my perfect daughter, my former friend was struggling with her own new reality. Serafina had arrived 3 weeks after Lyra, and apparently, the birth had not gone as smoothly as expected. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was having a difficult time adjusting to motherhood, that she seemed anxious and overwhelmed. Part of me felt sorry for her. Motherhood is hard enough without the added pressure of trying to live up to stolen dreams. But I was too busy with my own transformation to spend much time thinking about her struggles. Because something incredible was happening with Lyra's name. Something I had not planned but somehow had intuited might occur. It started with my pediatrician's office. Every time I brought Lyra in for checkups, the nurses would comment on her beautiful name. "Lyra, like the constellation?" they would ask, and I would nod and smile, explaining the meaning and the celestial connection. I began to notice how people's faces would light up when they heard it, how they would repeat it back to me with obvious admiration. "What a gorgeous name," they would say. "So unique but not weird. So musical." When Lyra was 3 months old, I started a simple blog called Letters to Lyra. It began as nothing more than a personal journal, a place where I could document my thoughts and feelings about motherhood, my hopes for my daughter's future, and the little moments of joy and wonder that filled our days. I wrote about the way Lyra's eyes would track the mobile above her crib, as if she was already reading the stories written in the stars. I wrote about her tiny fingers grasping at sunbeams streaming through the window, as if she was trying to hold light itself. I wrote about the lullabies I sang to her, how her name itself was like a melody that made everything else harmonize around it. The blog was intimate, authentic, and filled with the kind of raw emotion that only comes from a mother's love. I posted pictures of Lyra's tiny hands, her sleepy smiles, her first attempts at rolling over. I shared the struggles too. The sleepless nights, the moments of doubt, the overwhelming responsibility of raising a human being. But through it all, her name was like a thread that wove everything together. Lyra, the little star who had transformed my entire world. The blog started slowly, just a few readers here and there, mostly family and friends. But then something magical began to happen. My posts started getting shared. Other mothers began commenting, sharing their own stories, asking questions about everything from baby sleep schedules to the inspiration behind Lyra's name. I have never heard the name Lyra before, but I am absolutely obsessed with it, wrote one commenter. It is going straight to the top of my list for my next baby. Lyra is the most beautiful name I have ever heard, wrote another. It sounds like music and starlight all rolled into one. Within 6 months, Letters to Lyra had thousands of followers. Within a year, it had become one of the most popular parenting blogs on the internet. I was getting interview requests from parenting magazines, invitations to speak at motherhood conferences, offers from brands who wanted to partner with me. But the most incredible thing was what was happening with Lyra's name itself. I started noticing it everywhere. In baby name forums, where expectant mothers were asking about that beautiful constellation name from the Letters to Lyra blog. On social media, where influencers and celebrities were sharing their baby name inspiration lists, and Lyra was consistently appearing in the top spots. In baby name trend articles, where journalists were trying to predict the next big thing in children's names. Lyra is having a major moment, read one headline in a major parenting magazine. Thanks to a viral mommy blog, this celestial name is shooting up the popularity charts faster than any baby name in recent history. The attention was overwhelming and exhilarating. Suddenly, I was not just Emma, the woman whose best friend had stolen her baby name. I was Emma, the influential mother who had discovered the perfect name and shared it with the world in such a beautiful way that everyone wanted to be part of the story. Major celebrities started choosing the name Lyra for their daughters. TikTok videos about celestial baby names would always feature Lyra prominently, with creators explaining the constellation connection and the musical meaning. Baby name websites reported that searches for Lyra had increased by over 300% in just 2 years. My former friend, meanwhile, was struggling to gain any traction with her own attempts at social media influence. She had started her own blog called Serafina and Me, clearly trying to capitalize on whatever success she thought she could create around her daughter's name. But the timing was all wrong. By the time she launched her blog, Serafina had already become just another pretty but increasingly common name. It was lovely, yes, but it lacked the story, the authenticity, the organic growth that had made Lyra so compelling. Her posts felt forced and artificial, lacking the genuine emotion and vulnerability that had made my blog resonate with so many people. She was trying to manufacture influence instead of sharing real experience. And readers could sense the difference immediately. While my follower count continued to grow exponentially, hers remained stagnant. While brands were reaching out to me with collaboration offers, she was begging for partnerships that never materialized. While parenting magazines were featuring my insights and experiences, she was posting to an audience that barely existed. The contrast was stark and, I have to admit, deeply satisfying. 3 years after Lyra was born, I received a message that made me smile with a mixture of vindication and pity. "How did you come up with Lyra?" my former friend had written. "It is literally perfect. I wish I had thought of something so beautiful and meaningful." I stared at that message for a long time, remembering the girl who had once clutched her fake pearls and told me that no one could own a name. The girl who had stolen something precious from me and then laughed about it, as if my pain was amusing and my dreams were worthless. I thought about responding. I thought about telling her exactly how I had come up with Lyra, how her betrayal had forced me to dig deeper, search harder, and ultimately discover something far more beautiful than what she had taken from me. I thought about explaining how her cruelty had been the catalyst for my daughter having a name that was now beloved by thousands of parents around the world. But in the end, I did not reply at all. Because by that time, I had far more important things to focus on. My blog had evolved into a multimedia brand. I had published a best-selling book called Raising Lyra: How I Named My Daughter and Changed the Game, which told the full story of my journey from betrayal to triumph. I had launched a podcast that featured interviews with other mothers about the significance of names and the power of authentic storytelling. I had turned my pain into purpose, my heartbreak into success, and my daughter's name into a legacy that would outlast any petty drama or stolen dreams. Lyra herself was growing into the most amazing little girl, confident and creative and absolutely radiant. She loved hearing the story of her name, loved knowing that she was named after stars and music and light. She would tell people proudly that her mommy had chosen the most beautiful name in the whole world, and that now lots of other little girls were named Lyra too, because her mommy had shared the story with everyone. I am like the first Lyra, she would say with 4-year-old confidence. I am the one who made everyone else want to be Lyra too. She was not wrong. Name popularity charts showed that Lyra had gone from being virtually unknown to being in the top 50 baby names for girls. Articles about baby name trends consistently mentioned the Lyra phenomenon, and the blog that had started it all. Meanwhile, Serafina had peaked and was already declining in popularity. It was still a beautiful name, but it had become just another choice among many, lacking the story and the emotional connection that had made Lyra so special. The irony was not lost on me. My former friend had thought she was stealing something valuable, but what she had actually done was force me to find something infinitely more precious. She had taken a name that would have been lovely but ultimately unremarkable, and in doing so, she had pushed me to discover a name that would become legendary. By the time Lyra started kindergarten, I was receiving messages from mothers all over the world, sharing pictures of their own little Lyras, and thanking me for introducing them to such a perfect name. Teachers were commenting on how many Lyras they were seeing in their classrooms. Baby name experts were studying the phenomenon, trying to understand how one blog had created such a massive cultural shift. The Lyra explosion is unprecedented, wrote one baby name researcher. We have never seen a single source have such a dramatic impact on naming trends. It speaks to the power of authentic storytelling and genuine emotional connection in the digital age. I had not set out to change the world of baby names. I had simply wanted to share my love for my daughter and document our journey together. But sometimes the most powerful movements start with the most personal pain. And sometimes the greatest victories come from the deepest wounds. Looking back now, I can honestly say that I am grateful for what happened. Not grateful for the betrayal itself, which was cruel and unnecessary, but grateful for how it forced me to become a stronger, more creative, more determined version of myself. If my former friend had not stolen Serafina, I never would have found Lyra. If she had not broken my trust, I never would have learned to trust my own instincts so completely. If she had not tried to diminish my dreams, I never would have learned to dream so big that no one could contain them. She thought she was taking something from me, but what she actually did was give me everything I never knew I wanted. She thought she was winning a competition that existed only in her own mind, but what she actually did was eliminate herself from a game where I was destined to be the champion. Today, when people ask me about Lyra's name, I tell them the truth. I tell them about the betrayal that led to the discovery, about the pain that became power, about the stolen dream that became a global phenomenon. I tell them that sometimes the worst things that happen to us are actually the catalysts for the best things we will ever accomplish. And when other mothers share their own stories of friendship betrayal, of stolen ideas, of people who tried to diminish their light, I tell them what I learned from my experience. Never let someone else's limitations become your ceiling. Never let someone else's lack of creativity become your constraint. Never let someone else's betrayal become your tragedy. Turn it into your triumph instead. My daughter Lyra is now 7 years old, and she is everything I dreamed she would be and more. She is kind and confident, creative and curious, with a strength that comes from knowing she is deeply loved, and a wisdom that comes from hearing her story told with pride instead of shame. She knows that her name means something special, not just because of its celestial connection, but because of the journey it represents. She knows that her mommy turned heartbreak into hope, betrayal into blessing, and that her name has become a gift that thousands of other families have chosen to give their own daughters. "Mommy," she said to me recently, "I am glad that lady took the other name. Because if she had not done that, I would not be Lyra, and being Lyra is the best thing in the whole world." Out of the mouths of babes comes the deepest wisdom. My former friend still lives in the same city, and occasionally I hear updates about her life through mutual acquaintances. Her daughter Serafina is lovely, by all accounts, and I genuinely hope she is happy and healthy. The sins of the mother should never be visited upon the child. And that little girl deserves all the love and joy in the world. But her mother learned a hard lesson about the consequences of betrayal, about what happens when you try to steal someone else's light instead of creating your own. She learned that taking something precious from someone else does not make it truly yours, and that authentic success cannot be built on a foundation of deception and cruelty. The last time I saw her, at a mutual friend's wedding 2 years ago, she could barely meet my eyes. I felt a flash of pity for her, remembering the young woman who had once been my friend, before insecurity and jealousy had turned her into someone I could not recognize. But that pity was fleeting, because I was too busy feeling grateful for everything that had grown from the ashes of our friendship. Too busy appreciating the incredible life I had built, the platform I had created, the positive impact I was having on families around the world. The book I wrote about our story became a bestseller, translated into 12 languages, and inspiring mothers everywhere to trust their instincts and fight for their dreams. The podcast I started has millions of downloads and has featured conversations with some of the most inspiring women in the world. The blog that started it all continues to grow, now encompassing not just parenting content, but broader discussions about female empowerment, authentic living, and turning pain into purpose. And through it all, Lyra's name continues to rise in popularity, continues to inspire new parents, continues to represent something beautiful and meaningful and strong. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had chosen differently in those dark days after the betrayal. What if I had started a public war over the stolen name? What if I had let bitterness consume me instead of channeling it into creativity? What if I had settled for a lesser name, a compromise choice, instead of pushing myself to find something extraordinary? But I know that everything happened exactly as it was meant to happen. The pain was necessary to create the passion. The betrayal was necessary to build the strength. The loss was necessary to make room for something infinitely more valuable. She stole my baby name, thinking she was taking something precious from me. But what she actually did was force me to give my daughter a name that the whole world now copies, a name that has become synonymous with beauty and strength and the power of a mother's love. Her daughter will grow up with a name that dozens of other children in her class will share, a name that has become common and unremarkable. My daughter will grow up knowing that she was the first, the original, the inspiration for a naming revolution that changed how people think about celestial names forever. And I will continue to build on the foundation that betrayal gave me, continuing to inspire other mothers to trust their instincts, fight for their dreams, and never let anyone else's limitations define their possibilities. Because in the end, the best revenge is not just success, it is significance. It is taking what was meant to destroy you and using it to create something beautiful. It is transforming your deepest pain into your greatest purpose. She thought she won when she stole my name. But she had no idea that she had just given me the motivation to create something legendary. And for that, despite everything, I suppose I should thank her. Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey of transformation and triumph. If this story touched your heart and inspired you to turn your own challenges into victories, please subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories of resilience, motherhood, and the strength we find in our darkest moments. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload, and share this story with any mother who needs to be reminded that sometimes our greatest defeats become our most beautiful victories. Your support means the world to me and helps me continue sharing these important stories. Subscribe now and become part of our incredible community of strong, inspiring women.